Over the years, there have been a handful of games that have been created strictly as a parody, and that's exactly what I just got done playing with the new Shadow of Loot Box. But will this one have you rolling in the shadows with laughter, or is this one just filled with some lousy loot? Shadow of Loot Box is a first-person perspective parody game that's making fun of a lot of the current gaming trends, from big companies with things like microtransactions to the overabundance of indie titles using things like procedural generation and survival mechanics. There's plenty of other jokes thrown in, like glitches, bad programming, things not being implemented quite yet. There's a level where there's absolutely no textures. It's like playing a really poorly made Steam game, except it's actually somewhat functional. Most levels end up changing up the theme a bit as far as what your overall goal is, and this allows them to poke fun at other trends. For example, their first level, you have to actually walk around and gain experience orbs in order to level up your skills. The first set of skills you get are things like run, jump, and pull lever. So the very bare-bone basics you actually have to unlock through leveling up in the first stage. A few levels later, you have a level where there's all these achievements on the wall with mundane tasks like jumping 25 times or pulling a lever a certain amount of times, and you actually have to perform a certain number of achievements, 10 in total, in order to get the key for that level and move on to the next stage. A little bit into the game, you are introduced to the first-person shooter perspective of the game, which isn't very good. There's only a couple of enemy types throughout the game, and you get used to kind of killing them, and there's plenty of little quirks throughout the game, including one boss in particular where you actually have to shoot above them because they programmed it badly. It's kind of funny that this is included, but the joke wears off, especially if you're playing on higher difficulties, because this boss is particularly annoying as it just kind of runs up on you and gets particularly hard to actually be able to hit it, even with the hitbox above it. I did like the giant dragon boss in the level with no textures. Because of this, it had kind of an 8-bit feel to it and reminded me of fighting a giant Gleeok in Legend of Zelda. Shadow of Loot Box did make me laugh, but a lot of the jokes in the game kind of just one of those things that are like, ha, that's funny, but after a few moments it just kind of wears out and you're getting bored and you want to move on to the next aspect or see the next joke. Thankfully, most levels are short, but a few in particular ended up dragging later in the game, the one where you have to survive and the one where you have to do crafting. It's funny that, yeah, it's very basic crafting and every single indie game seemingly throws that system in, but that joke wears off pretty quickly. From the technical side of things, the game didn't crash on me. There was a few bugs here and there. For example, the dragon boss, you can get stuck behind the shield. I don't know, though, a lot of times if the glitches or other mistakes in the game are supposed to be intentional because they're funny, or were they just oversights of the game as it was being put together. Shadow of Loot Box is available now on the PlayStation 4, Xbox One, Nintendo Switch, and PC for $4.99. It does feature a Platinum, like I mentioned earlier, and it's a pretty easy one to get on the PS4. Overall, Shadow of Loot Box is a cheap parody game that does pretty decent at what it's trying to do. You'll laugh a time or two for sure, but the game doesn't have a ton of replayability, and most of the humor has a shelf life for sure. With everything said, though, I'm going to be giving Shadow of Loot Box a 6 out of 10. That's going to wrap up this review, though. I'd like to thank you for watching, and of course, I hope you enjoyed.